Om Shanti. Uh, I'm going to speak about Raja Yoga being taught by Brahmakumaris across the globe, and every single picture I use in this video um, is given directly by God. By God, I mean that particular Supreme Soul, which was denoted by various names by various religions, like in Bible they call the Supreme Soul as Jehovah. Jesus calls him as Supreme Father, Heavenly Father, and Quran describes him as Allah, and in India we call him Shiva. And because he comes to India and teaches this every 5000 years, he is called Jnaneshwar, which means God of knowledge or version of knowledge. And he teaches this yoga. This is the actual yoga taught by God. Only God teaches yoga initially. And this yoga is called Raj Yoga, which means King of Yogas. Because he teaches yoga, Shiva is also called as Yogeshwar, which means God of Yoga. And first, he starts his teaching by um, explaining who we actually are. If somebody asks us who we are, the first thing that comes to our mind is our name and then our occupation, uh, everything associated with this physical body. But God says you are not this body. Just like a computer can operate anything, but still somebody needs to operate computer. Just like that, human brain is capable of um, doing anything, but still without life energy to operate it, the brain cannot work on its own. And God says it is that life energy who you really are. And in spiritual language, this life energy is called soul. This soul, uh, God says, is actually present in between the eyebrows, and that is exactly why Indians do wear some kind of red dot here, just as a symbolic gesture of the presence of life energy, that is the soul. And God says you need to remember that you are soul and not this body every single second, as much as the driver who drives car constantly remembers that he is the driver who drives the car and he is totally separate from the car. Just like that, God says you are the driver of the this body, which is more like a car. So as long as you are aware of that, the all the senses that is present in the body and your mind and intellect, they all will come under your control. That is, they all come under the control of soul. But if you forget that you are a soul, and if you start thinking that you are the body, then all these five senses and the mind and the intellect takes control of your soul, which is actually the reason behind all the sufferings that we undergo through this life. And God says, now God has, and he says soul is present in between these two eyebrows, and it is like a shining star. But it is different from the star. You can see star through your eyes, through your naked eye, but this soul cannot be seen by this naked eye. You can see it only through the third eye, called eye of knowledge, which is given by God. And that's actually the reason why God has come down to earth to teach this. and God has given the location of soul and how it looks like, and now he says the soul is composed of three components. First is mind, second is intellect, and third is resolves. And this mind, the main function of this mind is whatever you see right from your childhood, whatever you listen from your surroundings, whatever you read through books, whatever you experience, everything from those things that was actually stored in your soul, the thoughts arise. That's the main function of mind. It is from mind the thoughts arise. Most of the thoughts are useless and some might be useful, and when it is useful, the intellect enters and it starts playing its role of deciding whether it's good or bad, whether it's worth listening to or just um, get rid of. It is when this decision taking comes in, intellect plays its role, and it's only after first everything arises as thought, then it enters intellect where it gets decided, and after it gets decided, it just brings out the action, the desired action. And all these three, thought, decision, and the action, all these three get stored in the soul, that is present in between the eyebrows. That's stored, that is, it's recorded, just like song is recorded in a CD or DVD. All our actions, our thoughts, our decisions are recorded in the soul, and this recording is called resolve, and in Hindi they call it sanskar. I'll be using sanskar throughout this video, and God says this resolve or sanskar is very important because it decides your fate. Whatever gets recorded in your soul, that decides your fate. So it can also be called fate. Fate is recorded in your soul, and whatever gets recorded, those recordings decides what you should get in future. For example, if you have recorded all good things, all good thoughts, all good decisions, all good actions, then it has to reap its fruit, which means for good should happen, right? So yeah, anything that's good around you will be attracted by the soul that was actually recorded with good things, good thoughts, and good actions. But if you have recorded your resolve with bad thoughts, bad memories, bad decisions, and bad doings, bad actions, then it also attracts the bad things, which means the punishment. That's the fate of bad things. So it doesn't matter how many births you take, you just cannot escape from this fate. So that is why it is so common in India that they say, if somebody is very poor, they say, I don't know what sin have I committed in my past birth that I'm undergoing such suffering. This knowledge is present exclusively in India because it is only in India God comes and gives this knowledge every 5,000 years. And God says you need to be very cautious on what to record in your soul, because it is in your hand that what gets recorded in your soul. But now we may come across another doubt that says that okay, it's I'm getting this knowledge just now, but what about the sins that I have committed in my past births? I don't know how many births have I taken, and is there a way to get out of those sins without getting punished? And God says, yes, you can, because this uh, knowledge and yoga is being given directly by God. So he says there's a way out, and that is why he has come. And he says the entire world is filled with sinners. Nobody is free of sin. So obviously he comes only when the whole world is filled with sin. And why does he come? He comes to wash our sins away. How does he do? By teaching this knowledge and teaching this yoga. He says by realizing that you are not this body and you are this soul that controls the body, and remembering God, you can wash away all the sinful recordings that's recorded in your soul. That's possible, and that is the actual yoga taught by God. Um, it is this remembering God says as yoga. It is entirely different from other yogas that humans teach, which basically includes concentrating on particular part of your body or particular action of your body like breathing. But those were invented in future by humans. But yoga was initially taught by God, and by yoga all he means is remembering him. To remember him we need to know how he looks like. Only then we can remember him, right? And no religious text has ever till date has given about how God looks like. And it is only when God arrives that he gives introduction about himself. Um, how does our parents look like? They look just like us, right? They too have two eyes, two ears, they have these hands, legs, everything just like us. But God says, you are not the body, you are the soul that controls the body. And God says he is the father of all souls. So the father, how does father of all souls, that is the supreme soul, looks like? Yes, God says he looks just like us. That is, he is also a point of light, just like a shining star, just a very small point of light. And where is he? He is there in a world above us called Parandam. Um, it is because he is there always. He is also called in India as Parandaman. It's another name given to Shiva, which means God who lives in Parandam. Um, he looks just like us, and that Parandam, it's filled with red golden light. It's filled with rays of reddish golden rays. That's how that place looks like, and it has no day or night. It always looks like that, just golden reddish rays. And he's just like a shining star there. Okay, now I have said that this Shiva is the father of all souls. All souls. He is the supreme soul. If that's the case, then Shiva should be worshipped by all people across the globe, right? But as far as we know, it's only in India Shiva is being prayed. And God says it is in Indian language that you named that supreme soul as Shiva, which means the point of light, or Shiva also means that good doer. He he does only good to us. That's the meaning of the name Shiva, another meaning of that. And it is in Hindi that Shiv means light, and Ling means representation of that symbol. So it is the representation of the light that they start worshipping, that Shivling, which looks like this. In India, they don't have any human form for Shiva. They have only this Shivling, which is a representation of light. And in Bible, it is Moses that meets God directly first in the Old Testament, and when he first meets God, all he says is light, and he listens. He can listen to some bodiless voice without body, and so even there, God was shown only as light. And Guru Nanak Singh, the founder of Sikh religion, says the God is light. And Japanese, they meditate upon an object which looks more like Shivling. So, which means they unconsciously pray to the same God. And Muslims and Islams, they don't accept any form as God. They consider God as formless. But still, in their spiritual journey to Mecca, in Mecca there is a Shivling shaped stone called Kaaba, and it is by kissing that Kaaba they believe they can enter heaven. And Nuru, which means Allah is light, and Allah means doer of good things. He does good things. And this represents a Shiva temple in Nepal called Pasupatinath temple, and this is the first Shiva temple built in the whole world, which is in India, Somnath temple. It was built by Vikramaditya. And this is Kasi Vishwanath temple. This is Shivling built out of ice in Amarnath, and this is Shivling in Rameshwar. And Rama is a deity in India, and even he is believed to have worshipped God Shiva in Rameshwar. That's why it's called Rameshwaram. So it all represents that Supreme Father or Supreme Soul is being worshipped by all religions unconsciously. And now God is revealing another secret. First he reveals secret about who we really are. Second, he gives introduction about himself. Now he is revealing about the three worlds. One is within human knowledge and other two is beyond human knowledge. The one that is within human knowledge is called corporeal world. In Hindi they call Sthul world, which means you can see it. Like it consists of stars, planet Earth, and all those planets, everything that you can see through naked eyes, whether you see through telescope or through satellite, whatever, but you still see it through your naked eyes, right? So they all come under corporeal world, and this is the only world that is within the grasp of human knowledge, within the grasp of all religious texts. And God says there are two other worlds that's totally beyond human knowledge. The first one just above this corporeal world is called subtle world, which is which consists of just light, and three important deities or devas called Brahma, Vishnu and Shankar exist there. They are also souls just like us, but they do not have a body like us. You cannot see their body. They have body of light, and Above that there's a world called Parandam. I told, right, the God is actually present there, and this point of light above these stars is Allah, or Heavenly Father, or Shiva, whatever name you call it. Mm, This Supreme Father is present in this world called Parandam, or this is also called Brahmalok, or this is also called Soul World, because this is Allah or God Shiva, and these stars that's just below God Shiva, they are just us. It is we, um, that is our souls are there, and it is before we take this human body that we all were with God, and this is our real home. This is called soul world, and and we are naked here, which means we are without our body. That is why it is also called nirvana world, and this is why Buddha uses the word nirvana, but people mistakes his word and thinks that getting naked, that is being without dress, is what he is saying, and some religions have formed with the culture of being nude, but actually what God means by nirvana is this soul world, which where we do not have our dresses called body. We are just souls here, and only difference between God and us is actually God is also a point of light just like us. There's no difference at all. The same size, same shining power, everything. But we from this soul world comes to this corporeal world and takes birth. That is, we take human form. We enter some uterus and we start life in this planet Earth. Then after death of that life, again we enter uterus of another person, and we just take birth after birth for till we reach 84th birth. After completing 84 births, we again reach this soul world, which is called mukti, and only after this after the completion of 84th birth we enter here, and only then we can attain mukti. Till then nobody has attained mukti as represented by many Hindu texts, and after that again we enter this corporeal world, again we take 84 births, again we reach here. This is more like a cycle. This goes on and on and on endlessly. This has no beginning and no end for this cycle. This is called world drama, and God says God has no beginning and end, and we souls do not have beginning and end, and this drama does not have beginning or end. But God does not enter uterus, which means he does not take birth like us. He is always present in this place. He always exists as point of light, which is why we call as Sada Shiv, which means always as point of light. And to complete this 84 birth, we take 5000 years, and at the end of this at our 84th birth, God enters one human body and gives these teachings, and he does not take human body for himself. He just comes for 1 hour or 2 hour and gives his teachings, and he just leaves the body. It's more like how Christ's soul enters Jesus' body and gives teachings and leaves his body. Just like that, God enters a person's body, and we will see whose that person and why he selects that particular person. So to complete this 84 births we need 5000 years, and we will see what happens in that 5000 years in our next picture. This is given as a circle. This 5000 years is called as one kalpa. Just like 1 year consists of 12 months, one kalpa consists of 5000 years. And something very interesting about this kalpa is whatever happens in one kalpa, they just gets repeated in every other kalpa, which means to understand it very easily, just look around you while you are listening to this video. Whatever you see now and whatever dress you wear while watching this video, whatever your mental state is while you are watching this video, the same thing happened exactly 5000 years ago at this particular day. This is so fixed, nothing changes, even there is no variation even over a second. It is that fixed, and that's why in India they call this as fate decided by Brahma. This knowledge is also present only in India because God comes only in India every 5000 years and gives this knowledge. And in this 5000 years, let's see where we are now. We are at the last 100 years of this 5000 year cycle. After the completion of this 100 years, the fresh kalpa will begin. So God comes here. Let's see why God comes here and why he comes only at this place and why he chooses only this person. Let's see what this 5000 years represent. Let's split the 5000 years into two equal halves. Then it will consist of 2500 years and another 2500 years, right? The first 2500 years is heaven and the next 2500 years is hell in this same earth. Heaven is not above us and hell is not below us. God reveals the secret that both hell and heaven exist in the same place but at different times, just like day and night coexist in the same place but at different times, right? Just like that, 5000 years back this world, especially this India, was heaven, and now we are about to complete the hell, and in our next birth there will be heaven in this in India. And that is why God comes at the last 100 years of this kalpa cycle to give knowledge about what we should do to enter heaven, because just before entering heaven we need to be educated about the qualifications to enter heaven, right? That's why God comes only here, and God says he has never come at any place in this 5000 years. He always comes at this 100 year last 100 years, which is called Sangam Yug. This is a Hindi word which means the time that connects old kalpa with the fresh new kalpa. That is the ending of the old kalpa and the starting of the new kalpa. And God comes here. Okay, let's see who lives in heaven. If you are from India, you even if you are not an Indian, you will still be aware that India is a polytheistic country, which means we do believe in the existence of many gods, but God says only Shiva is God, and this Shiva is same as Allah, is same as Heavenly Father, that is Jehovah in Bible. Then all other gods, that's being prayed in India, they are deities and they are not God. They can be called devas. And the first deva to be born in heaven is Lord Krishna. This Krishna, Sri Krishna, since he was the first kid, then he should be the first kid to complete the 84 births, right? And it is the soul of Krishna that was like this person in his 84th birth. I know it's very difficult to say this person in this picture, so God, let me take this picture. Baba. Okay, he looks like this person, and this point of light above him is God Shiva, and God Shiva enters his body and gives this teaching, and God names this person after entering his body as Brahma. In India, people believe that Brahma created this world. Brahma is responsible. Brahma is the creator God, and this is how he creates the world. Actually, it is Shiva that creates the world, but he uses Brahma's body. How? By whoever listens to the teachings of Shiva through Brahma's mouth, they are called Brahmakumaris and Brahmakumaris, or Brahmin. There's a separate caste called Brahmin. They call themselves as forward caste, but that is entirely different from the Brahmins we represent here. And God says we Brahmakumaris are the real Brahmins, because in Vedas it is mentioned that Brahmins were born out of Brahma's mouth, which means it is by listening to the words of God Shiva through Brahma's mouth, we become Brahmins. So we are the real Brahmins. God says it is by becoming Brahmin now you are learning how to go beyond body consciousness and to become soul consciousness. It is the first lesson that God said that you are not the body but you are the soul. So bring consciousness to the soul and get rid of body consciousness, because it is purely because of body consciousness you are undergoing all the sufferings. And it is by practicing soul consciousness in this last 100 years, by accepting God Shiva and by accepting Brahma, we become Brahmins now. And by effort and by practice we become soul consciousness gradually in this birth, and gets registered in our sanskar, in our results, in our souls. So when we take next birth, it comes so automatically, it comes so naturally, without any effort. We are already soul consciousness, and these devas, they all will be soul consciousness, and it is because they are soul consciousness they are capable of doing anything that God can do. Now whatever they think, they can achieve. For example, if I think for a second that whoever listen to this particular video should have a golden crown now above their head, it will come just in a second, even without saying. Just if I think, it is possible. The reason for that capacity of thinking, that power of thinking, is because we are in soul consciousness. That soul consciousness has that capacity, and God says The only difference between God and us is uh, we enter this human body and we start believing that we are body, and we forget that we are soul. And God, he always remains as soul, and just because he is always as soul, that he is capable of controlling this world, this nature and everything. And God says, by becoming soul consciousness, you can become equal to me and you can rule this whole world. It is this soul consciousness that is misrepresented in Bible as um, when Adam and Eve ate that fruit, that knowledge fruit, God gets angry and he drives them out of heaven into hell. What actually happens is, God does not drive anybody out of anything. God doesn't get angry at all, because he comes at a time where we are in hell. He comes to hell to take us to heaven. This is what actually happens. And here God teaches us how to become soul consciousness, but gradually uh, we forget that we are soul, and while entering hell we become body consciousness. And just because we become body consciousness, we convert heaven to hell. We are not going out of heaven, we just convert heaven to hell, because both exist in the same place at different times. And this heaven is occupied by devas. They are gods except Shiva, except God Shiva. All other gods that has human form, that's being worshipped in India, all those are called devas, and they are the only people who inhabited earth for the first 2500 years. There were no religions, they don't believe in God, they don't even know about God, they do not know how they become like this. It is because of God they become like this, but after taking birth in heaven they just have no idea. Just like we do not have any idea why we are born here, right? Just like that, they do not have any idea about that. And I said, whoever enters this earth, they have to complete 84 birth. Only then they can go back to Parandam, that is the soul world, right? Then if devas were here for the 2500 years, they ruled this world, which was basically India, because no other continent was there for the first 2500 years. There were no religions, there were no Hinduism, no Christianity, no Muslim, no religious test, nothing. There was just one dharma or one religion called Devata religion. They are called Devata religion. It is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita as Adi Sanatana Devi Devata Dharma. And they are filled with good wealth and health. They all live for 150 years, and when they are about to leave their body, they'll be very happy because they are aware that they are going to get a new body, and they would even be aware of where they will take their next birth. So there is no point of tears. They have no fear of death, because they consider themselves as souls, and they consider this body as just their clothes. So they will be very happy to change their clothes. So there's absolutely no fear of anything, including death there. And there is no hunger, there's no thirst, but still it is filled with beautiful fruits and flowers, and they will just taste it just for the sake of it, not because they are hungry. And the flowers in heaven will be very filled with fragrance that is so divine in nature. This the flower that is present in today's world does not even have 1% of fragrance that is present in the heaven. And their houses were built out of gold. Even earth, the sand, the earth surface will be filled with gold. Then you can imagine how wealth they are. And this air, earth, water, all these five elements will be under their control. Which means if you are aware of serials like Mahabharata and Ramayana, Lord Krishna enters a craft like uh, golden thing, and it just carries him in air, which means air is actually carrying him. The atmosphere itself is serving him. Actually it serves everybody that were present in heaven, and there won't be any fight. Everybody is filled with love. It's uh, to imagine how beautiful their hearts are. Lion and cow, they drink water from the same lake at the same time, which means even lion and tiger, these wild animals do not have that wild nature while they were in heaven. um, this is also mentioned in Bible, but uh, they don't think that uh, they are kind hearted. They think that they can play with them, because it is by thinking over this fact that even lions and tigers and all wild animals that's present in heaven do not have any wild characters with them, then think about how the king that rules that world would be. He would be so he would be filled with peace and love. uh, he wouldn't have any arrogance. That is what represented by the cow and a lion taking water from the same water source at the same time. Uh, while these devas, by taking several births, when they enter this hell, they start having this body consciousness. They start feeling their body as themselves, and because of that they start having lust, greed, all those jealousy, uh, anger and ego, all these five evils. It is only when they become body consciousness these five evils can enter them. These five evils is collectively called as Maya by Indian religious texts, and the same five evils is called Satan or Satan in Bible and Quran. It is by becoming body consciousness they start having these five evils. Because of that they start feeling pain, they start suffering pain, because they want to gather everything for their own. Whatever they see, they want to label everything as it is my house, it is my wife, it is my kid, this is my wealth. So they start accumulating all this wealth for themselves, but unfortunately they have to get separated from that at some point of time, and when that happens they undergo huge sufferings, and that is when they start remembering God for the first time. And first they build temple for God Shiva, then they start building temple for all the devas that were present in heaven. Actually these devas themselves are becoming humans here, and they start worshipping themselves without knowing it. They are just unconscious that they are praying themselves, and all those religious texts they are being written at this point of time. And it is God's direct teaching comes at the last 100 years of this kalpa cycle, and for the first 2500 years there's no need for that knowledge, there's no need for worshipping God. And when they start undergoing suffering for the first time, they start remembering those teachings in memory and in dreams, and they start writing all religious texts. That is how Bible, Quran, Bhagavad Gita and all religious texts came into being. But they do not have the original teachings, they just have a drop of it, and even that drop is not the entire truth. There will be some confusion in it. Because of that confusion, the whole world becomes totally peaceless. And because of that, those religions and those religious sacred texts, people start fighting it with each other. And no matter how many religions come in this hell, no religion has ever mentioned this body consciousness as the root cause of all evils, and nobody has ever mentioned that soul consciousness is the actual thing that is needed for entering heaven. The whole world is actually becoming dead hell, dark hell, only after the beginning of all these religions. And because this body consciousness reaches its peak at the end of the fourth yuga called Kali Yuga, the whole world is actually giving sufferings to each other by thoughts, by actions, by lust, by communal clashes, by regional clashes, and even they created atomic bombs, nuclear bombs, that is quite enough to destroy this world 100 times continuously. So it is all being created in the last 100 years. The destruction of the hell and the beginning of heaven is initiated at the same time, that is the last 100 years. For instance, this nuclear bomb, that is the famous scientist called Einstein and some other scientists wrote letter to the 12th president of America, Franklin D. Roosevelt, that uranium was found plenty in Germany and we can use uranium to create atomic bomb. That happened in 1939, and that is the starting of destruction of hell. And in 1936, just 3 years before that, God entered Brahma and started giving teachings, this teaching called Raja Yoga. So all these things are happening for a reason. And another thing is, if you are an Indian, you will be aware of what I'm going to say. It is in this last 100 years God chooses and give this knowledge, and by getting this knowledge we become Brahmin. By going to Brahmakumari center, we would be listening to God's direct teaching just for 20 minutes every single day throughout our life, and they'll be reading just 4 pages, and by listening to it continuously and by doing yoga, which means by remembering God, being in the remembrance of God while doing everything, we can wash away all the sins that's recorded in our soul, and we become completely soul consciousness in this Brahman birth. By becoming Brahman here, in our next birth we become Devas, that is deities, where we do have full soul power. We are fully, totally soul consciousness. And here in this second yuga, first yuga is called Satyuga, which means the golden age, which is filled with golden buildings, and also our mind is golden in nature, which means we do not think of doing harm to anybody. Then the second age is called Treta Yuga, which means silver age, which is also heaven, but still they lose some of their value, because of which they live only for 125 years. In the first yuga, in the first age, Satyug, they live for 150 years. In the second yuga, they live only for 125 years. And in the third yuga, it is called Dwapar Yuga. It is only here all religions start forming, and this is called Copper Age, and this is called Kali Yuga, which is called Iron Age. And this is why God, Jesus Christ, at many places in Bible says, you are more like stone-hearted or iron-hearted, which means we are living in this place. Okay, first in this Sangam Yuga, which is the last 100 years of Kali Yuga, we become Brahmins. Then in the next Yuga we become Devas. In the next Yuga we become Kshatriyas, that is we lose some soul power. Then we become Vaishyas. Then we become Sutras, which is the lowest form of mental state. So it is the same soul that is becoming Deva, that is becoming Kshatriya, Vaishya and Sutra at different times. But in our religious texts and Vedas, they do not mention about Devata in this cycle, but still they mention Brahmins to be above Devas, but they didn't mention how. And they represent Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Sutra to be 4 different castes, because of which people clashed with each other and they took away lives of thousands and thousands of people. And because of these sufferings given by religious texts, many people have stopped believing in God, stopped believing in religions, and they started becoming atheist. But the actual knowledge given by God do not separate people. It is only when this knowledge is misrepresented in Bhagavad Gita and Bible and Quran, people start fighting each other. In Bible and Quran, it is mentioned, if you start praying gods of other religions, even if that happens to be your own wife or mother or your own kid, just kill them with no mercy. So God doesn't say all these things. It is humans in hell that has written all those religious texts, and they committed some mistakes that actually turned this planet to dark hell. And it is we cannot complain God for that, because God comes only in this 100 years. He never comes in between. That same Kalpa cycle, which is also called Srishti cycle, which is nothing but a time cycle, it was represented as steps here. And just like a cell phone, after getting charged for 30 minutes, it can hold the charge for a week. Just like that, by taking knowledge of God directly from God, for in the last 100 years, we retain that power for the next 5,000 years. It takes 5,000 years for us to completely get rid of that power, and that is represented here. Just like cell phone, after removing from the charger, it is filled with full charge. Here in the first yuga, Satyug, Devas are filled with soul power, soul consciousness. And the first kid that's born here is Sri Krishna, as I mentioned earlier. And this Sri Krishna and Sri Radha, after getting married, they become Narayana and Lakshmi. So Krishna and Radha they are not different from Narayana and Lakshmi. After marriage, their name changes to this, and they live for 150 years. And in the first yug, they take 8 births, which means there will be 8 Narayana in this family, because only those who are born into king's family will become king, right? Just like that, the kids that's born into Narayana's family, they become Narayana. So 8 Narayanas get married to 8 girls, which are called Lakshmis, which is called as Ashtalakshmi in India. They have different stories in according to the religious text, but the actual reason behind the Ashtalakshmi is this one. And just like there are 8 Narayanas, the second yug consists of 8 Rama and 12 Rama and 12 Sitas, and they live for 125 years. Now, other than that, they will enjoy all the benefits of heaven. They'll be totally soul consciousness, and while they enter hell, they become body consciousness, because of which they suffer. They undergo huge sufferings, and they start remembering God. First, they built temple for Lord Shiva, and the first temple was built by King Vikramaditya, who is nothing but Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna, the first birth of Lord Krishna while entering hell is King Vikramaditya. It is only God that reveals this to us. Then they start worshipping all the devas, all the deities here. They start building temple for them. Then they start creating yaga. Yaga means they will build fire, and they'll put something into that, and they burn them to ashes. They think by doing that we can get rid of sin. But in Raja Yoga, God says it is by creating yogic fire you can burn out all your sins. By yogic fire, he means by remembering God continuously. It's like fire. It should be so powerful. That's why he used the word fire. But here they forget the actual intention behind God's teachings, and while writing text, they mentioned yoga as yaga, and instead of yogic fire, they mentioned fire. Instead of burning your sins into ashes, they remember only ashes, so they put whatever that's needed to produce ashes, and they just keep on saying swaga swaga, which means burn them into ashes. And again, they start praying trees, they start praying nature, they start praying even yoga teachers. All these things are happening till now. But still, no matter how many religions come into being, how many texts come into being, how many different divisions are there, nobody has ever mentioned that body consciousness is the root cause of all evil. So because of that, they start giving pain to girls, to our neighbors, through our thoughts. We start fighting in the name of religions, in the name of regions, in the name of color, skin color, races, and so on. And also there are clashes between countries. They start developing atomic bombs, and God says when the time comes they will use it, just like as they used in the last kalpa. And also the nature has become arrogant just because man has become arrogant. It is when man becomes so peaceful and divine, the nature is under his control. When he becomes body consciousness and becomes arrogant, even nature becomes arrogant, and they create destructions like earthquakes, tsunamis, and so on. And God says it is only by the destruction of hell heaven comes into being in the same place. So both will go hand in hand. At one place hell will be destroyed, at one place heaven will be constructed. The same kalpa cycle that was shown as ladder steps, now they show as kalpa viricham, which means kalpa tree or srishti tree. And this kalpa viricham is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, but there was no enough explanation. Only God can explain this. God says he is the seed of this tree. By seed he knows, he has the entire knowledge of this tree, and it is through God's knowledge Brahma and Brahmakumaris, they form the root of this tree, which lies behind the earth. It is not so obvious like other religions. And after the destruction of hell, this same heaven will start forming the main stem with no branches. This main stem represents no division, no religion, nothing. They rule this world for the first 2500 years with no division. This is heaven, and while they enter hell, they start forming branches. Through Ibrahim, a branch called Islam come into being. Through Jesus Christ, a branch called Christianity come into being. Through Muhammad, branch called Muslim come into being. Just like that in India, through Buddha, a branch called Buddhism come into being. Through Guru Nanak, branch called Sikhism come into being. Just like many religions come into being, but all religions are in their worst state now, and everything should be burnt into ashes now, because now religion has power to withstand now, and all religions are there now, but this main stem is missing. So God says this whole tree should be burnt for this tree to start freshly. Now this root is being planted by God, directly by God and Brahmakumaris, and in our next birth, which is going to happen very soon, and we'll be ruling this world for the first 2500 years. Then again all these branches will form, and after this what they show above is the clashes between countries, world superpower countries, which will lead to the destruction of this hell. Okay, let me reveal a secret here. How Jesus Christ, Muhammad and Buddha got those knowledge which lead to separate religions. God says it is through this religion. One second. God says Jesus Christ, actually Jesus Christ is not a single soul. Jesus is one soul and Christ is another soul. It is after Jesus enters his middle age, the soul called Christ comes directly from Parandam, which is the soul world, and he enters his body and start giving those teachings like be good to others, love everybody just like you love yourself, all those good great teachings. And it won't be in his body forever. It will come, enter his body, and give teachings for 10 minutes to hours, then it leaves his body. Again it goes back to Paranam. That is why it is called sinless soul. It is free of sin, but Jesus is not free of sin. He has already taken birth. The reason Christ is called sinless soul, because it comes directly from Parandam. It is only after entering the uterus your soul is becoming corrupt or becoming sinner. So Jesus at one point says we are all sinners, which includes him, but he also mentions that sinless soul has entered my body, which means there is a separate soul called Christ, and the main role of that particular soul is to create a religion. Only till Jesus was alive the soul was sin free, and after death of Jesus, actually Jesus died on the cross, and when he comes alive on the third day, it is Christ's soul that enters his body and brings it alive, and that was not Jesus. And after that both Jesus soul and Christ's soul enters another body just like us. They start taking birth and they all become sinners just like us. And the same thing is the case with Muhammad and Buddha. Muhammad Nabi, they say, Nabi is the actual person and Muhammad is the pure soul, sin-free soul that comes from Parandam and gives the teachings. Even in Quran it is mentioned while the Nabi was in a secluded place above the mountain, a white body enters his body, and he starts teaching, and they believe that particular white body might be Allah, or they think that that is God, but that is not God. That is a soul. I mentioned, right, those three worlds. We too have those three things: soul, that light body, and this material body. So the soul do not have, these pure souls do not have material body. In soul world they will be just souls, naked souls. When they enter this subtle world, they take their light body and they enter some body that was already there, like Muhammad Nabi and Jesus and Buddha. And the same thing happened with Buddha, and it is well known that Buddha has become enlightened when he was sitting in Bodhi tree. Is it possible for someone to become so brilliant just in a second by sitting under any tree? What actually happened is, it is when he was sitting there, the Buddha soul enters the body. Actually, the name of that body was not Buddha, the body was called Gautama Siddhartha. It is the Buddha soul that he enters his body and start giving all those teachings. And there follows, and another thing that you need to mention, you need to note very carefully is, in the Christianity branch, it is Jesus Christ that comes first, and all other Christian souls comes only after him, which means we all think that Christians are changing religions of other people throughout the world, but that's not the case. It is only the Christian souls that comes after Jesus Christ will convert to Christianity. When they come here, if they don't find any Christians, obviously they will be born into some other religions. But when they listen to Christians' teachings, Bible teachings, they will get so attracted to it, they become Christians. And these biblical teachings do not attract all religion people. It is only the Christian souls that get attracted to it. It is only the Islam souls that get attracted to Quran teachings. and Muslim souls that get attracted to Muhammad teachings, and only the Buddhist souls that get attracted to Buddhist teachings, because these religious preachers, they come first in the branches, and all other um, their religious souls, they come only after them. So they, after listening to their teachings, they get so attracted by them and they become Christians, Buddhists or whatever. Just like that, even here, not everybody gets attracted to the teachings of God, directly the God. Not everybody will become Brahmin. It is only who were devas, those who entered heaven in the last kalpa, only they will listen to these teachings through all other medias, and they become Brahmin and they will enter heaven. And other religious souls, their religions will not leave them to leave their religions, so they'll get attached to that and they won't enter heaven either. This is called Tirumurti. Here in India, there are three separate deities for the creation, for sustenance, and for destruction of the world. Brahma is called the creator, Vishnu is called the sustenance, and the destructor, Shiva. And it is widely believed that Shiva is the destructor, but it is not Shiva. This particular form, because Shiva is point of light, he does not have any form. They still worship Shivaling in Shiva temple, and some temples now they start having this photograph, not his statues. He is called Shankar, he is not Shiva. He is responsible for the destruction and not Shiva. And it is this same Brahma who becomes Lord Krishna when he enters heaven, and it is this Lord Krishna who becomes Lakshmi Narayan after getting married, and this is the combined form of Lakshmi Narayan, and that's why it has 4 hands. 2 represent hands of Lakshmi and 2 represent hands of Narayan. And the 4 things that's in the forehand will be present in most Hindu gods. Let's see the actual meaning of that. By this symbol, they call Sangha. I don't know what is this in English. This represent the teachings of God, and it means the Brahmin's duty is to listen to God's direct teaching and to teach this to others, and to help God in the creation of heaven. And this chakra is called Srishti chakra. We have seen it already, the Kalpa cycle, 5000 years cycle. This is also called Swadarshana chakra, which means Swadarshana means seeing their own history, which means remembering their 84 births. And another hand holds a lotus flower. By lotus represents purity. It might live in a dirty pond, but still flower rises above the water and it stays away from all dirt. Just like us, we Brahmins, we may have to live in Kali Yuga, which is filled with evils, but still our mind is connected to that one God. That is what represented by this lotus. And another has this weapon called Kadayudam. This weapon is represents our fight against Maya or Satan or evils. So this same Brahma is becoming Vishnu. Vishnu is the combined form of Lakshmi and Narayan in heaven, and the same Vishnu is playing the role of distractor by doing yoga. By doing yoga, we put end to hell and start creating heaven, right? It is by destroying hell there's possibility of creating heaven. That's why. And the same Brahma is becoming this. Here the same Brahma is playing all these three roles. Just like that, we along with Brahma are playing all these three roles. These are the powers that we attain through Raj Yoga. That is the yoga taught directly by God. The first is the power to pack up and to stay adrift. Here they have shown a packed box, which means they are ready to go anywhere. They are ready to face anything. If we do certain things that we like, if somebody comes in the middle and asks you to stop doing that, we will tend to get angry. And the reason for getting angry is in that short span of time we get so attached to what we are doing, and God says stay detached to whatever you do. It's more like you will be doing something, you will be doing everything, but still in your mind you will be quite aware it is not you who is doing those things. You just surrender yourself to God, so you think God is actually doing all the things you do through you. So you are more like a weapon of God. When you are in that mental state, you will not get attached to anything, you will be ready to do anything, you will not have to undergo any suffering. The same thing is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita as do your duty but don't expect results. This is the actual meaning of that line. Then power to tolerate. Here in Kali Yuga we are living in the dark hell, so obviously everybody will be throwing stones and all those harsh words towards us, but still just like a ripe mango tree is giving only fruit to those who stone them, we have to be so pleasant and we have to use only sweet words to those who use harsh words towards us. And it is this knowledge that was given by Jesus Christ later as if somebody slaps you, show your another cheek, which means that comes actually through karma cycle, karmic philosophy, because God says whatever karma you do that gets recorded in your soul and you have to face its consequences, right? And when somebody is hurting you, actually it is your karma in your past birth that makes him to hurt you in this birth. When you are aware of this knowledge, you won't react to that hurt. You will be just saying thank you. You will be actually happy that your karma is ending now. You don't have to face furthermore consequences, and that is why you need to thank the other person. You need to be thankful, and this is exactly what Jesus says, but he didn't explain that. This is the actual explanation. There is a karmic philosophy behind that. And also he says those who suffers, they are the luckiest. The actual meaning of that word is also the same, power to tolerate, the karmic philosophy. And the third power is the power to adjust. They show ocean, sea, and just like all rivers join a sea and also drainages join sea, but still she just intakes everything calmly and gives peace to the world. Just like that, all souls have their unique roles. God asks you to accept everybody just as they are. They don't try to change them, because God says whatever role they play, they have played already in the last kalpa, and everything is prefixed and they cannot change it themselves. Even God says, even God is controlled by this drama, and he cannot change his role. Whatever role he played in the last kalpa, only that role he will play in this kalpa. He will come only when it is fixed. He will say only what was fixed in the last kalpa. So even when our own Father God is not under our control, how about other souls? Do you think we can control them? So God says, just be conscious that they are doing their roles and watch them as a drama. Just be the witness. And this is where God says to be a witness. But now there's a whole bunch of modern spiritualists. They just dig deep only into the witness, and they try to remove God, and they try to create knowledge just by using the word witness. But God uses the word witness only in this sense. um, Power to discriminate is the fourth power. um, Here they show the picture of a person who is trying to distinguish between the original gold and the duplicate gold. Just like that, we through this Raja Yoga will gain power to discriminate what is good and what is evil. Whatever things that creates suffering to others, they all come under evil category. Whatever thing that brings about good to both you and others around you, they all come under good categories. Through this Raj Yoga, you will be able to discriminate that in advance. And the fifth power is the power to judge. Most of the time we know that we are hurting others by our actions, but still we cannot come out of that action, because we may have got addicted to doing that over and over again. And it is through Raja Yoga we'll have the power to judge what we should do to do good to us and to others. And the next power is the power to face. Here they have shown the picture of people carrying a dead body, corpse, and we may face such several deaths, sudden deaths, and many critical situations that puts us into danger. And God says, the situation is not in your control, the surrounding is not in your control, but still by being soul consciousness you can always be detached to this world, which is actually attached to your body and not to your soul. By being detached, you can retain and sustain your peace and joy even in those critical situations. And the next power is the power to cooperate. Here they have shown several people giving a finger in lifting a mountain. So if several people, if they all are willing to give just a single finger, they can even lift a mountain. That's the power to cooperate. And what forbids us from doing that? Our ego. And God says, even God, who is actually giving us all this knowledge and taking us to heaven, washing us all our sins, even he himself does not have even a teeny tiny bit of ego. And God says, why do my kids do have ego? He asks us to give up ego and be free. And by giving up ego, we'll have this power to cooperate. And by listening to the Brahmakumari teachings that's being taught in Brahmakumari Center, just for 20 minutes every day, you will see your ego coming down to zero level, and you'll be cooperating with everybody, and you'll make your life happy for yourself and for others. And the last power is the power to withdraw, which is the power to withdraw your senses. Now while we are in our body conscious state, our senses are controlling us, but by becoming soul consciousness we will have control over our senses, just like how your tortoise will withdraw its senses while it faces any danger. Now, by having control over our senses, uh, nobody can steal the happiness, peace, joy, um, and the powerfulness from us. By having this forever, all our thoughts, our decisions will be crystal clear, and we'll be coexisting with everybody, and we'll be making this whole world into heaven. I think I have covered almost everything, and I'll be creating videos shortly in many subjects based on teachings of God. I think God will use me as tool in future also. And let me end this video at this point. And okay, let me say this. The official website for Brahmakumaris is www.brahmakumaris.com. When you log into that website, brahmakumaris.com, search for the option called Centers Near You, and when you enter that, you can check for yourself for the center that's near your location, and it is there in 130 countries, I believe. It might be more now, and don't miss this. Don't miss this opportunity to learn directly from God, because God comes only at this point in this entire 5000 years, and if you miss this opportunity now, when will you get the next chance? Never, because he comes only now. If you lose this opportunity in this birth, obviously you will make the same decision in every kalpa, and you will be missing the same opportunity in all other kalpas, so it will be just now or never. Om Shanti.